Hello, everyone. My guest today is Ashwini Asokan. She is the CEO and co-founder of Vue.ai, a computer vision and artificial intelligence company for the fashion retail industry. At the company, her and her team of 100 give the power of sight and learning to machines, teaching them to see and experience the world like humans do. Working across San Francisco, India, and Seattle, her team has been known to build some of the most cutting-edge AI tech and products. All right, Ashwini, you ready to take us to the top?
There we go. Yes.
All right. So tell us what customers are using this technology right now. Who are you selling to?
Fashion retailers for the most part. So think Macy's, ThredUp in the US, Diesel Valentino across Europe, Tata Group of Industries in India. So we've got a variety of fashion-focused retailers across the globe that use Vue.ai.
Okay. And how might one of these, a Target or an online retail, specifically, how would they use you?
So there's kind of three ways in which most of these guys use the AI that we provide. The first one is in automating their product digitization process. So the minute all their merchandise comes into their company, someone's going to have to be today sitting down and writing and creating all this data about that merchandise, right? Black t-shirt, round neck, long sleeves, and then attributing different kinds of styles to it. Is it casual wear? Is it, official wear? And there's actually people from across the globe that are crowdsourcing a lot of this data. Most of this data is incorrect, it's inaccurate, and in a lot of cases, people are not even creating that data, right? So for us, this whole process of using computers to create that merchandise and inventory data for retailers is one of the three primary value propositions that we have. The second one is actually around modeling and photography. So we've got algorithms that basically generate images in human form to model clothing, right? So today, most of these companies that we work with use mannequin studios, or they take pictures with models, and most of them actually take the head off because they don't want to pay licenses. And there's a lot of misuse of model imagery out there in the industry. And so increasingly, we're beginning to realize that AI-generated human models is actually a very appropriate kind of use case.
So models love you. You're putting them out of business.
That's not true. So most of the models are being used for marketing purposes. Our use cases have nothing to do with marketing purposes. They're more site merchandising. So you've got these millions and millions of images on these product pages with just, mostly photo-generated or photoshopped images without heads in there. And for us, we're actually generating AI-based models. So customers just give us their clothing, and we produce different types of models in different body types, different skin types, different race. Now, almost everybody across the world, for most of these brands, they see the standard 6 feet, the classic model kind of body. And most of the world doesn't even fit that image, right?
Got it. So how are you, when you package all this into your platform, right? Give me a general sense of how you're pricing this. Is it per number of SKUs? Is it a pure play SaaS play? How do you price?
We are a SaaS enterprise company, so it's largely based on the catalog sizes for these companies. It's based on usage in some ways. But
measured by what?
So catalog size is a huge portion.
Yeah.
Right?
What's the usage metric, though? You said it's usage based as well. What's the usage portion?
So the usage based part of it is largely things like traffic. So our AI Stylist, which is another product, is based on how many people come and interact with the AI stylist, right? So again, we style and curate outfits for people across the globe for different brands and retailers as well. And so some of it is catalog size based and some of it is like web traffic and app traffic.
Okay. And then I want to capture more of your backstory here. Before we do though, give me a general sense of average here, right? So the average customer or the retailer is going to pay you what per year to use your technology?
Anywhere between $100,000 and $1 million.
Okay. So it's very much an enterprise sales motion.
It is. It absolutely is.
Okay, timeline. When did you launch? What year?
2016.
Okay, when did you write the first line of code?
That actually started around 2014.
So my question is, how much money did you and your co-founder sink into the MVP before your first dollar of revenue?
Well, we were completely bootstrapped. We had saved up. I had saved up from having worked at Intel for over 10 years in the Bay Area, and it gave us an opportunity to bootstrap our own company. We have raised almost $29 million to date in seed, Series A, and Series B since we started the company.
Well, yeah, but go back. Just because you're bootstrapped doesn't mean you didn't spend money to build the MVP. It just means you spent your own money to keep, so you don't get diluted, right? So how much of your own money did you guys think you spent to build the MVP?
$100,000.
Okay. And did you feel like you did that pretty efficiently, or you could have done it cheaper looking back?
Oh, a lot cheaper looking back. And I think it's interesting, right? Because we did not start off with Vue.ai. We actually started off with the underlying technology platform. So one of the reasons we actually started the company is we wanted to build our own computer vision and AI proprietary platform. So much of the first 2 years of the work that we did ourselves was actually building out the underlying platform before we actually started Vue.ai. So it was a bit of a the other way that we went about it. Fast forward to 2019, there are still not a lot of SaaS and enterprise companies out there that are pure play AI.
Yep.
So we are, in a way, we believe that we've actually broken ground here in this category, being an AI first SaaS company.
And so you 2014, 2016, you're building, you get your first customers that year. How many customers are you now serving today?
Almost about 35.
Okay, 35. And do you remember how you got your first? Can you tell us that story?
Yes, I do. So I can't name names, unfortunately, but I was actually at a talk called Mind the Product is a fantastic product community across the world. And there was a Mind the Product conference, and I was actually speaking at it in 2016 in San Francisco.
Uh-huh.
And I had visited there and also ended up cold calling a top-notch retailer out there in San Francisco, an online retailer. They let us in. The CPO gave us a chance.
Hold on. They let you in the conference. Basically, you were trying to get in for free?
No, I was a speaker at the conference. Sorry. So I was out in San Francisco. I was a speaker at this conference,
Yep.
Find the Product. And around the exact same time, I ended up meeting somebody from this online retail fashion company at the conference.
Oh, I see.
And ended up also cold calling her, getting in touch with her and got a meeting with her and started pitching her the promise of AI and how it can truly change the way.
What was her title?
She was the VP of product, actually, not the CPO. She was the VP of product.
Okay, interesting.
And it was at that time, this was one of those few companies that was already ahead of the curve. They were already thinking about replacing kind of their existing practices in the warehouses. They were spending almost like a minute, 2 minutes on just the tagging activity, and a lot of their site search and discovery was broken, and they wanted to they saw the use of computer vision in that context and said, okay, let's start putting millions of these products through, the computer vision tech that we had and start
the product. I think my audience totally understands the product. I totally get the need for this. I'm curious though, volume wise, so 35 customers, how many SKUs have you now processed across all your base altogether?
We have tagged about 450 million products today.
450 million. Okay. Over the last what?
2.5 years.
Over the last two. Okay. And how much over the past 12 months?
More than, so a large portion of that, almost 300 million in the last 12 months.
Okay, good. So obviously good growth there. Now, churn's critical in any SaaS company, right? So how do you measure your churn? And have you had any customers downgrade or cancel since you started?
Yeah, so this has been an incredibly. I would still argue we're still in a bit of a early adopter market. We're just moving from early adopter to early majority. It's very evident, and so for us, our strategy right from day one has been going after the biggest names in each geo. So we went after the largest companies and the largest brands in the US, in Europe, in South America, in India, in Japan. And it was very counter to almost any investor I was pitching to, or most of my peers, other founders that I've been talking to, saying, it's really hard to kind of build an enterprise startup by ground up by only pitching to the top tier. But it was very evident to us that we had to build this category out right from day one. And our strategy was to go after the biggest names in the industry and build credibility and trust. And that was more important to us than anything else. So from a churn perspective, it's interesting. Our churn started happening when we immediately said, you know what, let's also start going behind people with no volume at all, or really small, young startups that were coming up in the fashion space. And that is when we started to see a little bit of churn.
But it shouldn't be a ton of churn though, because they should be paying such little amount relative to your enterprise deals. The revenue churn should still be really low if you're churning small startups.
Fundamentally different strategies, right? And that is probably the biggest lesson that we learned, that we can't handle both segments at the same time very early in the day. And I think we went head on by going through all segments at the same time. And so enterprise is still definitely one of those verticals that works we figured enterprise out. Mm-hmm. And now we're at that point where,
But Ashwini, sorry, just because we're short on time, I don't mean to cut you off. But so when you look at the past 12 months revenue churn, are you talking like 10% or more?
No, we're talking about like 2%.
Okay, 2%. And then and that's monthly or annually?
Annually. All our contracts are annual. So we don't have monthly churn for the most part.
And then when you look at, you've had 2, 3, 4 years of business history now, when you look at expansion revenue on these accounts year over year, does it more than make up the 2% loss?
Absolutely. Right. And
so like, do you think that's like 30-40% range, or what would you put that in?
So at least 30 to 40% of our growth year over year comes from our expansion revenue.
So just to repeat that back to you, if someone signs up with you today with a certain number of SKUs on $100,000 ACV, you're saying they're going to use you, they're going to add more SKUs, they're going to have more headcount, and they'll expand to at least 140, 150,000 in year 2.
Absolutely. And even more, like, I can't tell you exactly the numbers at this point, but for us, with like, I would argue like 6 or 7 of these 30 customers that we've had have more than tripled in the 2.5 years that we worked with them, right?
That's great.
So a huge portion of it has been really growth. And since it is an end-to-end promise, it allows us to actually continue to build and grow with our customers.
How aggressive are you being to get them in the door in the first place? So if they're going to pay you $100,000 in year 1, will you spend the full first year ACV to get the customer for a 12-month payback period?
Oh, not at all. We're talking about CAC for this segment today being something more like 10% of that. So CAC is not, which is very counterintuitive. A lot of people go, that makes no sense at all. But it's basically a couple of flight tickets at the end of the day, because enterprise sales is all about being in front of the customer, showing them how this works, and doing it over and over.
What's the salesperson commission?
About 7 to 10%.
Okay, so yeah, so again, 7 to 10% on $100,000 is $10,000 right there, and then you're basically saying there's no other cost to close the deal.
It's mostly in the form, like I said, it's mostly in the form of a couple of flight tickets, but that's pretty much it.
Okay, what's your team size today? How many people?
Today we have almost 100.
Okay, 100 folks spread out all over.
Like 102 actually, yes, spread all over.
Now, obviously, you're on the VC path, which means you're trying to figure out smart ways to burn capital to drive growth. I always like to get in the heads of CEOs and figure out how aggressive you're choosing to be. So when you look at burn that you can actually sleep with at night, right? Are you talking like $100,000 a month, $1 million a month, $10 million a month? What are you comfortable burning?
Well, for me, at the end of the day, the burn is not so much a number as much as it's, I tend to look at every milestone that I've kind of taken from a fundraise perspective. For me, I've noticed that it's roughly about like 18 months for the most part. I'm somewhere between 18 and 24 months, and we've been incredibly cash efficient, right?
Sorry, what do you mean by 18 to 24 months? You're talking in terms of cash in the bank, in terms of anytime like your run rate, basically?
Yes, that's exactly right. And so with every cycle, we plan for a minimum of like 24 months, and we've been pretty on the dot, and which means my fundraise cycle has kind of coincided with that kind of ability to stick to that dot from a budget perspective. So the churn is a lot less a number for me, and more in terms of looking at the revenue we're making, looking at the growth we're making, and how am I able to plan the fundraise cycle according to that is largely the story of burn for me. And of course, at the end of the day, it's important to look at gross margins. We are a SaaS enterprise company, so our eyes are constantly on the margins. And
hopefully that's like 85 to 90%, correct?
Almost, I would say. Remember, we are a computer vision company in the cloud.
So heavy software.
Image and video in the cloud is what we do. And it's all real time with very, very little lag, because our customers are hitting our APIs and we're serving back images and videos and analyzed real time.
What was your, just to round out the funding story. So when was the last round?
2 months ago.
Oh, you just closed it. Oh, that's great. How much was it?
17 million in Series B.
Oh, got it. Okay, got it. So you had about it sounds like 12 million in before that across seed and Series A, and then the 17 million came, or sorry, was it 12 million before that?
It was, so we did 17 this time around, and yes, we did do 10.5. So it's like 27.5. Prior
to that. Okay. And you're saying when you're doing the 17 in your head, what you're thinking is you want to buy yourself at least 18 months of runway.
Oh, of course. Yeah, absolutely.
So that means burn today would be something like $900,000 a month, less than $1 million.
Way less than $1 million. You forget, like we are a huge portion of the team is based out of India. A small portion of the team is based out of San Francisco. And then we have other folks out of Japan and Latin America, but a huge portion of our team is based out of India.
Okay. I get the reason I'm asking is just because you said you like to raise for 18 months of runway. So 17 million divided by 18 months is $1 million.
That's above, yeah, but that's over and above the revenue, right? So I'm not going to live off of my of just the fundraise alone. So the fundraise is like a combination of the 17 million plus the revenue that run rate that I am in right now.
Yeah.
So that's 18 plus when I think my cash is going to run out.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. And then going back, right? So you said 35 customers north of $10,000 a month each. That puts you north of $350,000 a month right now in revenue. Is that accurate?
I'm not sure I'm ready to disclose that, unfortunately.
Well,
but yes.
I'm not trying to get you in a gotcha. I'm taking numbers you already gave me. You said everyone paid more than $100,000, some up to $1 million, and you said 35 customers.
Yeah, some up to $1 million. Yes.
Yeah, but you said everyone. I'm not trying to get you in a gotcha. These are your numbers. You said north of $100,000 and some up to $1 million. So if I assume the minimum of $100,000 a year across 35 customers, that's north of $350,000 a month.
That's right. But we do have increasingly over the last, like, say, 6 months, folks in the mid-market category as well as part of the experiments we're doing. So, but it is fair to say that we're looking at somewhere between 75 to 100 in terms of the average.
Okay. When do you think you'll hit 350 a month? Do you think you do that this year or is it more like next year? It's a stretch goal.
Oh, God, no. Like now.
Okay. Got it. Fair enough. Good. And then where were you a year ago? Doubling year over year or more or less?
We did 4X last year. We went from 0 to 1 in about 12 months, a little over 12. And then we did a 4X right after that. And this year we're looking at roughly about 3X. So
just to be clear, if you're doing like $300,000 a month right now, and you're saying you like, basically that's 4X year over year, you're saying you're only doing like $75,000 a month a year ago?
No. So we're on year 3 right now. So we did 4X last year in 2018. And this year we're on our path to doing about 3X.
Oh, got it. So you're doing about $100,000 a month a year ago.
A little more than that.
That's great. That's healthy growth. And is most of the growth coming from expanding into the same customers or adding new logos altogether?
It's even. It's both. And being an end-to-end custom kind of a platform, it's really important for us to kind of invest back in our customers. And so the land and expand strategy for us, comes up to like 30 to 40% of our revenue. And then there's a lot of new growth as well.
Very good. All right, let's wrap up here, Ashwini, with the famous 5. Number 1, what's your favorite business book?
You have something sitting there right behind you. Now, Chaos Monkeys is a fun one, but I'm very recently reading Ben Horowitz's Hard Things About Hard Things. Like the 40th time I'm reading that book. That's definitely an all-time favorite of mine.
And number 2, is there a CEO you're following or studying?
Not a single one, but Katrina Lake is a pretty fantastic one to follow.
Number 3, what's your favorite online tool for building your company?
Online tool for building my company, from an HR perspective or from in what way? You pick. Okay. Twitter. I hire 15 to 20% of my employees on Twitter.
Number 4, how many hours of sleep do you get every night?
Oh my God, this is a total shaming moment, isn't it? Not a lot, probably about 4 to 5 hours. I've gotten better this year. I'm going to be at 7 by the end of this year.
Can I ask you like your situation, like married, single, kiddos?
I'm married. My co-founder is my husband.
Okay. Any kids? 2.
5 and 9. Yeah.
All right, 2 kids. And then can I ask Ashwini how old you are?
37.
Take me back 17 years. What do you wish your 20-year-old self knew?
What was that question again?
What's something you wish you knew when you were 20?
No, you know what? It's almost the exact other way around. I would say my 20-year-old self was a professional dancer and a professional musician and so full of confidence and completely flying. And I would look back and go, oh my God, I hope my 20-year-old self tells my 37-year-old self today, it's all going to be okay. It's the other way around.
Guys, it'll all be okay. She's helping online retailers better manage their SKUs, their inventory for accuracy, whether it's licensing issues, imaging issues, or just scale issues, serving 35 customers, paying north of $7,000 a month. So call it $300,000 a month right now in total revenue. That's up from just $100,000 a month a year ago. So nice growth rates. They've got about 2% gross churn annually on 30% expansion. So 128% net revenue retention, spending call it like $10,000 to get a new customer. So pretty healthy payback period. They've raised about $29 million, just closed a $17 million round here 2 months ago as they look to continue to scale. Ashwini, thank you for taking us to the top.
Thanks, Nathan.